He promised to pay back one day, heart-wrenching plea of a black boy for milk at 3 a.m. The moon hung low, casting eerie shadows that danced across the damp streets. It was 3 a.m., the witching hour when silence turned sinister, but this was broken by the wail of a child. A boy, no older than 8, stood there, trembling in the chill of the night, his eyes wide like saucers, glistening with unshed tears. His small hands were balled into fists, knuckles white as he pleaded, "Please, just a little milk, I'll pay you back. I promise." His voice cracked, a haunting sound that echoed against the empty buildings. But who was he? A ghost in the darkness? No one knows where he came from, only that his presence filled the air with a thick tension, heavy like a storm brewing. He wore old, tattered sneakers and a too-big hoodie that hung off his small frame. A stray dog paused, sniffing the boy's leg, sensing the sadness radiating from him. Moments passed like eternity, and each second stretched thin, filled with a desperate hope hanging unspoken between them. The boy's stomach growled, a low rumble that echoed the torment of a soul needing comfort. As he stood there, shadows whispered around him, and the neon lights from a nearby convenience store flickered ominously, casting a ghostly glow on the boy's tear-streaked face. What drove him to this hour, this place? Why was he begging for something so simple yet so elusive? Each question hung heavy in the air, urging anyone watching to feel the weight of his plea. Cars whooshed by, oblivious to the heartbreak unfolding on the corner, while his small form seemed to shrink, swallowed by the vastness of the night. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension escalated, heartbeats pounding like war drums. A woman stepped out, her heels clattering against the pavement, her eyebrows furrowed. She glanced at the boy and shock etched itself across her face. "Is he okay?" she stuttered, glancing around for someone to intervene. No one moved, each person wrapped in their own cocoon, the boy's plight blending into the backdrop of a world that seemed indifferent. Her voice carried, slicing through the heavy air, but there was no answer, only the boy's pleading eyes. Suddenly, the boy held out a crumpled piece of paper, a forgotten treasure in his palm. "This," he whispered, "this is my promise." What promise? What hidden story lay in that torn scrap of paper? As offered, he looked like a forgotten hero from a story yet to unfold, waiting for someone brave enough to turn the page. The night held its breath, pregnant with possibilities. What would happen next? What tale of desperation and warmth would emerge in the shadows? The air crackled with anticipation, leaving questions lingering in a city that had long turned its back on the fragile lives within its depths. Before the woman could let the words escape her lips, a car screeched to a halt. The headlights sliced through the darkness, illuminating the boy's haunted face. The driver, a man in his 30s with a disheveled appearance, stared at the scene in disbelief. He swung open the door and stepped out, a rusted flask clanging against his side. "What is happening here?" His voice was rough, but there lingered a hint of genuine concern. All eyes turned to the boy, and even the stray dog seemed to sense the rising tension. The air was thick, electric with uncertainty. "He needs milk," the woman said, her voice trembling. It's late, and milk?" The man's brows furrowed deeper, scanning the boy's fragile form. "In a world like this, kid, what do you think milk will do?" He let out a bitter laugh, his words dripping with the weight of past burdens. The boy's eyes never left him, seeing beyond the rough edges into the deeper pain. "I'll pay you back one day." The boy's voice trembled, desperation lacing his tone. "Just a little milk, please." He held the crumpled paper tighter, as if it were a lifeline. "Pay back?" The man sneered, shaking his head. You think anyone cares about promises like that? In this world? Don't be naive. He turned to leave, the harshness of the city overshadowing the child's plea. But the woman stepped forward, her resolve hardening. Wait. You can't just leave him here. Look at him. Her voice broke slightly as she gestured toward the boy. He's just a child. 5 minutes in this world could break him forever. Can't you see? The man paused, his shoulders stiffening as if her words had struck him. They hung in the air, heavy. For a split second, his wall of indifference began to crack. Come on, man, said another passerby, a young woman with vibrant red hair who had stopped to observe. Do something. He's asking for help, not the moon. The man's jaw clenched as he glanced back at the boy. The child's eyes glimmered under the streetlight like marbles innocent yet weighed down by too many shadows. Fine. The man sighed, turning back toward the car. He opened the back door and pulled out a small carton of milk, its surface gleaming as if it held the light of hope. As he walked toward the boy, a small crowd began to gather, whispers circulating. Let us make sure he doesn't go hungry tonight, someone called out. As the boy reached for the milk, his voice trembled with disbelief. Really? You'll help me? Just take it and don't make a fuss, the man replied, his voice heavy with reluctance, yet softening as he watched the boy's joy flicker. But then, just as the boy grasped the carton, the distant sound of sirens flashed through the stillness, growing closer, leaving a foreboding chill wrapping around the group. What now? The woman murmured, peering down the street, heart racing. The boy's eyes sprung wide again. They're coming for me. He shrieked, panic bursting forth. The carton slipped from his hands, the sound of it hitting the pavement echoed like a gunshot, spilling its contents across the ground. The onlookers exchanged nervous glances. The man looked at the boy, then back toward the approaching sirens, his heart pounding in sync with the wail of the police. What had he stumbled into tonight? In that moment, the night deepened, dragging them all into a vortex of uncertainty. Who was chasing the boy? And what darker truth lay just behind his desperate cry for milk? As the blue and red lights flickered to life and the sirens crescendoed, a singular thought gripped the boy's heart: what would happen next? The collective anxiety pulsed through the crowd, each person's breath catching in their throat. The boy, panicking, darted forward, desperately searching for an escape in the chaos. He turned down a narrow alley, shadows swallowing him as he slipped away from the light. The sirens blared louder, transforming the once calm street into a surreal stage of dread. The man hesitated, gripping the abandoned carton of milk as if it were a handle to sanity. A woman called to him, "What is going on? Who is that kid?" Her face twisted in confusion, mirroring everyone's concern. "I don't know," he murmured, his eyes darting toward the alley. "But we can't just let him run off like that." Without thinking, he took off after the boy, legs pumping as he swerved into the darkness. The alley was dank and narrow, littered with broken glass and echoes of unseen rats. "Hey!" he shouted, voice cracking with panic. "Wait up!" The boy could hear him now, but fear propelled him faster. He pressed against the damp brick wall, trying to put space between himself and the terrifying sound of authority. But the escape he craved twisted into a dead end. The boy's heart raced, thudding against his ribs, a wild drum summoning his worst fears. The man caught up, breathless, his shoes skidding against the slick pavement. He reached out, voice steady despite the rapid thump of his heart. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The boy looked up, eyes wide and glossy, glistening with unshed tears. "They're gonna take me back. I can't go back." His lips trembled, and the man sensed a deeper horror folding over the child, one that twisted in the shadows of the night. Who's coming for you?" The question hung heavily in the air, thick with urgency. Before the boy could answer, a voice echoed from the entrance of the alley, cutting through the tension like a knife. "There he is." It was a uniformed officer, tall and imposing, flashlight beam cutting through the dark like a sword. A jolt of fear shot through the boy. I can't go back. Please. Panic seized him, tethering his thoughts into a whirlwind. He backed away from the man, pressing deeper into the wall. The officer stepped forward, hands raised, but they looked less like an offer of peace and more like shackles poised to restrain. Stay where you are. I just want to help. The boy's breath came in rapid gasps, and for an instant, he saw an escape route, a narrow gap in the brick. But fear stopped him in his tracks. I didn't do anything. He wanted to scream but only managed a whisper, I promise. The man shifted, sensing the shifting dynamics. Wait. Can't you just talk to him? He urged the officer, his hands raised too, trying to bridge the gap between authority and desperation. The crowd loomed behind them, a collection of strangers turned spectators, each one silently judging the unfolding drama. Whispers rippled through, panic mixed with distress. Just tell us what happened. The woman's voice rang out from the shadows of the crowd, reflecting a shared confusion. We can help. But as the boy's body trembled, a chilling realization dawned on him. They wanted to separate him from the only hope he had. Every promise, every dream of being free, slipped through his fingers like sand. Let him go. The man shouted, the urgency lacing his voice with adrenaline. He's scared. We need to listen. The officer hesitated, the tension thickening almost painfully. And within a heartbeat, the boy looked up at the officer with wide, pleading eyes. I didn't do anything wrong, I just wanted milk, please don't take me back. The man's heart raced beside him, realizing the weight of those simple words. What terrible truth lay behind the reason why this child was running? As the sirens blared in the distance, time slowed. Each breath felt like a countdown. What would happen next? The boy's trembling figure was a fragile candle in the storm, at any moment ready to flicker and go out. The air vibrated with unspoken fears and unrelenting truths as their futures hung in the balance. Would they find a way to protect him from the darkness closing in, or would this desperate plea for kindness turn to ash? Uncertainty loomed heavy, and the question lingered, what darkness lay waiting to be uncovered? The officer's face softened for just a moment, caught in that fragile pause between fear and understanding. But the urgency of the moment snapped him back. Step away from the wall. He commanded, voice amplified with authority. The boy's eyes darted wildly, searching for a flicker of hope. No, please. His small frame quivered, vulnerable against the harsh light. The man, desperate to reach the child, stepped forward. Listen. He's just a kid. There's more to this. His heart hammered violently in his chest, sending a wave of adrenaline coursing through him. You have to let him explain. The officer shifted, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. But the crowd behind him was rising, voices clamoring for resolution, each opinion breathing new fuel into the tension. I saw him running. Shouted a man with a raspy voice. Looks suspicious to me. The officer's gaze snapped over to the bystanders, frustration painted across his features. All right, I need everyone to step back. This is a police matter. With every passing second, the boy's fear turned more palpable. He slid down the wall, clutching the carton of milk as though it were a lifeline. Please, I just wanted something to eat. The memory of hunger flashed across the boy's face, haunting and raw. An echo of a life he couldn't escape. The brutality of reality was etching itself onto his spirit. Get him out of here. Another voice shouted. Familiar, and cutting. A woman from the crowd, fixated with judgment. People, please. The man urged, his voice barely above the rising murmur of the crowd. We need to listen to him. But voices shouted back. He should have stayed away. Kids like him don't just run unless they're trouble. The atmosphere thickened with anger and distrust, and the boy's eyes dropped, filled with despair as every word cut deeper. I wasn't doing anything wrong, I'm not trouble. The officer hesitated, thrown off by the rawness in the boy's plea, an unfamiliar spark of compassion flickering against the backdrop of his professional instincts. Why are you running? The officer asked, softer this time, yet commanding. The question hung in the air, thick as smoke. I just wanted milk. I was hungry. The boy stammered, shoulders hunching inwards as if he were trying to disappear into himself. I thought it'd be okay to take it. Just a small bottle. The admission caused a jolt of disbelief among the crowd. Whispers turned to gasps as the reality shattered preconceived notions. But we need to know why you think they'll take you back. The man's voice rang out, urgently. There's got to be a reason. Muffled gasps erupted from the crowd, the question weighing heavy on everyone's conscience. The boy hesitated, the weight of his truth pressing down on him. If they find me, they'll take me back to where I came from. I can't go back. Tears spilled over, carving paths down his dirt-streaked cheeks. The officer frowned, staring intently at the trembling figure. The fervor in the crowd built again, a wave of vocal dissent. What do you mean by that? You can't just take. What's he hiding? A sense of collective accountability gripped the alley, as if they were all part of this unfolding tragedy. The boy had unwittingly become a mirror, reflecting the world's judgment back at them. Please, he whispered, crumpling down, his back against the wall, surrendering his spirit. I'm not trouble, I just wanted to feel safe, just this once. Silence engulfed the group, a stillness balancing on the edge of desperation. The officer glanced back at the crowd, uncertainty swirling within him. The moment bled into eternity, and it seemed the universe held its breath waiting for someone to take a step toward compassion. But the sting of prejudice burned bright, refusing to let go. And as that haunting question echoed in the alley, an unexpected shrill shattered the grave silence. Look out! Someone shouted as shadows loomed from the entrance, 3 menacing figures blocking the exit, converged like wolves ready to pounce. What would happen next? Would the boy find the safety he so desperately sought, or had he already stepped into a trap of his own making? The crowd gasped collectively, the tension slicing through the air like a knife. Eyes widened, hearts raced as the 3 figures emerged from the shadows, mirroring the primal instinct of dread, like prey sensing a predator. The officer instinctively positioned himself between the boy and the looming threats, gun shifting lightly in his holster, sweat beading on his forehead. Stay behind me, kid. He barked, though his voice wavered. The boy, trembling, could barely grip the carton of milk. The symbol of his desperation adopted a new dread. Was this milk now a crime? The figures stepped closer, their faces obscured by hoods, but the menace radiated from their posture. The crowd tensed, whispers transformed into an anxious buzz, and there were murmurings of retreat. What do they want? One whispered, fear palpable. Let us move, one ominous figure commanded, his voice cold like steel, breaking through the gathering storm of panic. We're not here for a hassle. We need him. Who are you? The officer challenged, stepping forward defiantly, but his tone faltered as uncertainty seeped in. These weren't just thugs. There was a determined focus in their eyes that suggested familiarity. The second figure sneered, casting a glance at the boy cowering against the wall. You don't need to know that. Just step aside, and nobody gets hurt. Fear gripped the boy like a vice. What did they mean by him? Did they know? Did they know why he was running? The boy's heart raced, pounding in his chest like a drum echoing desperation. He couldn't go back, he couldn't. Stay calm, kid. I need you to hold your ground, the officer urged, though his own composure was waning, shaken by the threat and surprise in equal measure. The crowd held its breath, the tension suffocating, caught in a standstill as instincts battled understanding. Look, we can sort this out. Just tell me what you want. The officer was trying, desperately trying, to negotiate peace where shadows danced with malice. We have no time for games, the third figure growled, stepping into the light, revealing a scar that traced across his cheek like a warning. Either you let him come with us peacefully, or we'll take him by force. An electric silence drowned out the world as realization sank in. The boy's mouth turned dry, terror clawing at his throat as every frantic thought spiraled. They wanted him. He looked at the officer, eyes wide and pleading. Please, I didn't do anything wrong. His voice quaked, breaking through the looming silence, reaching everyone in that alley, trembling with the weight of unintended consequences. The officer's brow furrowed, torn between what he was sworn to protect and what was right. The crowd shifted, uncertainty swirling among them, as collective impulses warred the urge to flee clashing with the instinct to stay and fight for the boy caught between two worlds. The heavy atmosphere thickened, filled with palpable dread and faint cries demanding justice. Suddenly, one figure lunged forward, the crowd erupted, a surge of chaos unmooring safety. Run! Someone shouted, but the command lost its potency amongst the fear churning in everyone's hearts. The boy, heart racing with hope mixed with panic, scrambled to his feet. Would he have the chance to escape? Or was he tangled in a web too thick to break free? Just as he turned to bolt, another voice rang out. Stop! It was the woman from before, the one who first condemned him. He's just a kid. Was that compassion? Or desperation to save her own conscience? The question hung in the air again, heavy and fraught with meaning, as everything spiraled toward the unknown, lives poised on a knife's edge. Would the boy find any shred of safety, or had fate already sealed his path? And when the dust settled, who would pay the price? Panic surged, electrifying the air as the crowd erupted into chaos. Messages of fear exchanged through hurried whispers, a collective heartbeat thrumming with dread. The officer's hand twitched at his holster, the boy's wide eyes scanning for a path, an escape that felt increasingly out of reach. Get back! The officer shouted, stepping forward again, trying to block the advancing figures, his mind racing to devise a plan that didn't end in catastrophe. Every tick of the clock felt excruciating as time stretched, and the mob swelled with tension, shouting fractured phrases, urging safety while all eyes darted nervously between the boy and the looming threats. Calm down. Everyone just calm down. A voice squeaked from the back, but no one was listening. People surged backward, fear overpowering rational thought. The figures tightened their formation, blocking every escape route. A challenge hung in the air like an unbroken promise. The boy's throat choked on the spoken fear, the carton of milk slipping through his fingers. He wanted to scream, to demand his voice be heard, but no words fit the urgency of the moment. Mama, the whimper slipped out, vulnerable and thin. Focus, kid. Stay with me. The officer called, but his authoritative tone cracked under pressure. His heart pounded like a drum, matching the rising frenzy around him. The officer could feel the tension tighten like a noose, threatening to choke the last hope right out of them. One of the figures took a step closer, their intentions laced with malice, finger brushing against the hidden weapon at their side. We're not playing games. He's coming with us. No. The officer barked, desperation breaking through his tough exterior. He couldn't fail, he wouldn't. You don't know what you're getting into. But the words fell flat. The third figure with the scarred face curled into a cruel smirk, as if savoring the unfolding chaos. We know exactly what we want, officer. You're just in the way. Just then, someone from the crowd broke through, an elderly man with lines of worry etched deep on his face. This is a child. You can't take him. He yelled. Cries arose, voices mingling in a tempestuously woven tapestry of dissent. The boy thought for a moment that he might gain strength from this sudden support. He looked around, met the eyes of his neighbors, friends, fear painted across every countenance. Please, you're not going to hurt him, are you? A voice quivered. It was a girl he recognized, her own heart beating fast, echoing his own, and then, just as minutes felt like hours, the officer glanced back at the boy, urgency sparking in his eyes. Run. Now. The boy hesitated, muscles tensed, rooted to the ground by uncertainty and fear. "Run!" the officer reiterated, knowing this moment was slipping through their fingers. In one swift motion, the boy released the remnants of his courage, bolting in the opposite direction, lungs consumed by the frigid air, every step echoed against the brick walls. The crowd absorbed his flight, hearts racing as chaos ensued behind him. "Get him!" one figure yelled, beginning the chase as shadows danced beneath flickering streetlights. Fragments of cries danced within the boy's ears. "Stop! Help! Run!" A cacophony of conflicting emotions. He felt the ground chase beneath his feet, the weight of desperate glances thrusting him forward, urging him not to look back, but the shadows gained quickly, enveloping him in darkness that he lunged into an alley, desperation pooling in his chest. What was waiting for him in the deepening night? And what had the scar-faced demon meant by taking him? With breathless urgency, he turned again, eyes wide as he finally faced the decision that could change everything. In this life-or-death game, he was a pawn. Did he truly hold any say in the matter? The world hazed behind him, but as he ran deeper into the night, one question hung dense in the air: was it better to face the monsters or remain hidden in the shadows? And as he sprinted, navigating the impending storm brewing behind him, who would catch up first, the child or the monsters? The boy's breath came in ragged gasps, echoing in the narrow confines of the alley. Shadows flitted at the edges of his vision, creeping closer. He dared not look back, fearing the moment he'd see the faceless figures lunging forward. The alley felt like it was swallowing him whole, a tunnel of dread with no light at the end. He could hear them now, heavy footsteps pounding against the cobblestones. They were relentless, like a pack hunting its prey. The boy darted to the left, trying to maneuver through the dimly lit corridor, trusting instinct over reason. "Think," he whispered to himself, his heart a war drum in his chest. He couldn't let them take him. The thought of what they wanted, a life tainted with fear, was too much to bear. He knew he needed a plan, but every second raced like a freight train, time slipping through his fingers. Ahead, he spotted a narrow gap between two buildings, just wide enough for him to squeeze through. Without hesitation, he lunged towards it, his small body propelled by sheer adrenaline. As he wriggled through, the cold brick scraped against his skin, adding to the stinging panic raging in his gut. He emerged into a small courtyard, littered with old newspapers and debris, the perfect place to hide. Holding his breath, he flattened himself against the wall, hoping to blend into the shadows. He listened. The footsteps halted, heavy, and he could hear the cold laughter of the figures reverberating off the walls like a taunt. "Where did he go?" one of them demanded, frustration lacing his voice. "Just keep looking. He can't be far." The scarred figure sounded eager, almost excited, like a predator toying with its catch. The boy squeezed his eyes shut, praying they wouldn't find him. Every muscle in his body was taut with fear, sweat beading on his forehead. He wanted to disappear, to sink into the ground. Why was this happening? Why him? Suddenly, one of the figures stepped into the courtyard. Large and menacing, he scoured the area, his dark silhouette silhouetted by the flickering streetlight. The boy's heart thudded painfully against his ribcage as he suppressed a whimper. The figure's gaze swept right over him, lingering for a brief moment. "Come on, kid. It's cold out here. Just make it easy," he taunted, turning his back to the boy. A rush of shame surged through the boy. It was as if they saw him not as a person, but as an object, a thing to be taken or tossed aside. And yet, it also ignited a fierce spark inside him, a fire that demanded he survive. The laughter faded as the figure moved away, and with it came a breath of relief. He couldn't remain hidden forever. He had to move. With a deep, trembling breath, he scanned the small courtyard, his instincts kicking in. There. Against the wall, a metal dumpster stood half open, the lid slightly ajar. The boy sprinted toward it, heart hammering with every silent step. Adrenaline fueled his every move as he ducked behind the dumpster, peering out through the narrow opening. Time passed slowly, tension thickening the air as he waited for the figures to reappear. The nights felt longer now, shadows creeping inside his mind. But deep down, he felt a flicker of determination. He wasn't just running from something, he was running toward something. Suddenly, a scream pierced the quiet, cutting through his thoughts. Get away from her. The boy's heart skidded to a halt as he realized the scream belonged to the girl from earlier. Panic ignited again, consuming him whole. He needed to help. Would he leave his hiding place to fight the monsters? Or would he remain safe, hidden away, while others confronted the danger head-on? In that moment, as the world spun with uncertainty, he faced the hardest choice of all. How much of himself was he willing to risk for someone else's life? With newfound resolve, he whispered to himself, "I've got to go," but as he prepared to leap back into the chaos, a chilling realization washed over him. The shadows were closing in again. Would he fight or flee? And what awaited him on the other side of courage? Heart racing, the boy crouched behind the dumpster, squeezing his eyes shut against the impending dread. He felt the weight of the decision pressing down, almost suffocating him. The scream echoed again, reverberating through the alleyway and pulling at his gut like a hand reaching into the darkness. He had to help her. He couldn't just stand by. In that split second, all fear morphed into urgency. He peered around the dumpster, scanning the courtyard. The shadows twisted and turned, but the girl remained just out of sight, her terrified voice cutting through the night like a jagged knife. "Please. Stop. Leave her alone." A chill ran through him. He hadn't known her long, but something about her mattered. Wasn't that what bravery meant? He clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms as if needing to remind himself that he was real, that he could still fight back. Gathering every ounce of courage, he burst from his hiding spot. The spatter of his footfalls echoed against the damp stones as he sprinted in the direction of the screams, his heart pounding louder than the footsteps he knew were still searching for him. "Get back!" he shouted, his voice shaky but rising above the chaos. The figures turned, startled eyes catching the glimpse of a small boy defying them, standing tall in the face of their menacing figures. For a moment, time froze. The heavy air felt electric as they processed his audacious appearance. But the stillness shattered as the largest one snickered, a cruel grin spreading across his face. "Well, look what we have here. Brave little mouse, thinking he can scare off the wolves. Let her go." The boy's voice trembled but held firm, a wild spark igniting within him. He had never confronted something this terrifying. But for her, he'd have to try. Or what? "You think you can stop us?" The scarred figure took a step forward, his heavy boots thudding ominously against the ground. In that moment, the boy realized as much as he wanted to be brave, he was still just that, a boy. And a boy against monsters could easily end in disaster. But the girl's sobs spurred him on, a raw, unyielding force. "Leave her alone." He yelled again, this time stepping closer, desperation replacing fear. The figures exchanged glances now, no longer laughing. Their amusement had turned to something darker, something more sinister. "Boy, you should really run. This isn't your fight," one of them growled, the intent clear in his eyes. Vengeance lingered like a thick fog. "No." In a blur of instinct, the boy lunged forward, grabbing a loose brick from the ground, clutching it like a weapon. "I won't let you hurt her." A tense silence followed, punctured only by the sound of his own heart thudding in his ears. The figures paused a moment, stretched, heavy with potential chaos. Then, laughter erupted again, but this time it was low, foreboding. "You've got guts, kid. But let us see if you have what it takes." As the shadows advanced, he heard the girl plead once more, words that struck at the core of him, "Don't. Just run." But running wasn't an option anymore. He was too far gone, the line had been crossed. He raised the brick, a shaky ember of courage flickering within, his breath caught as he prepared for what would surely follow, the clash of boyhood bravery against dark hearts. Would he find the strength to stand tall? Could he navigate this twisted fate he'd stepped into? the thrill mixed with dread, as the moment hung in the air, thick and electric. And as the figures closed in, he realized this fight wasn't just his own, it was for all who had ever felt powerless, but like the light winking out, uncertainty crashed in as he took a deep breath, preparing for the unknown clash ahead. Would courage win out, or would fear reclaim him in the shadows? As darkness loomed, the true test of character awaited. The air crackled as the shadows approached, and the boy's knuckles turned white around the brick, his heartbeat rattling in his chest. Panic surged through him as he squared his shoulders, fueled by a cocktail of fear and fire. "Let her go!" he screamed again, voice trembling but unwavering. The girl's cries echoed, laced with desperation, sending tendrils of guilt curling around his heart. It was all or nothing now. The biggest thug stepped closer, looming larger than life, a wall of malice and mockery. "You want to play hero, huh? Let us see how long that lasts." With a swing of his arm, he flung the nearest trash can, sending it crashing onto the cobblestones. The clattering din swallowed the boy's voice as he staggered back, eyes wide, breath hitching. Adrenaline coursed through him, urging him to run, yet his feet felt stuck to the ground. Courage teetered on the edge of a knife, dancing between uncertainty and bravery. He couldn't turn back now. The girl needed him. "Help. Please." Her frightened voice sliced through his hesitation. It grounded him like an anchor, and just then, a spark ignited deep within the realization that he was more than just a boy with fears. He was a defender. "Get away from her!" he bellowed, planting his feet firmly. The brick felt heavy, but strangely empowering, as he brandished it like a sword. The monsters before him were still chuckling, but the laughter had turned stale, now tinged with disbelief. Then, one of the thugs sidestepped, eyes narrowing. "You think you can take us both? You're too small, kid. You're about to make the biggest mistake of your life." But he didn't care about the odds. A wave of hot determination surged through him. "I'm not afraid of you." That was a lie, of course. Fear clawed within him, but in that moment, it was overshadowed by something deeper, a protective instinct that blazed fiercely. Before he could think twice, he swung the brick with all his might. Time slowed as it whistled through the air, aimed straight at the thug's knee. A solid thud rang out, and the thug stumbled back, a roar escaping his lips, a mix of surprise and pain. The laughter evaporated, and for a heartbeat, chaos stood still. The other two thugs shifted, looking at one another, doubt creeping into their eyes. "Wanna play rough, huh?" The remaining thug growled, eyeing the boy as if he were a puzzle to solve. Wrath replaced his previously amused demeanor. "You're gonna regret that." But the boy felt something surge within him, adrenaline, yes, but also hope. He could see that girl, her eyes wide in fear, but with a glimmer of something else, a belief, perhaps, that he could succeed, that he could change the tides of fate. "Run!" she shouted again, frustration lacing her voice. "Get out of here!" "No!" he yelled back, a fierce determination surging. He couldn't leave her. He would never abandon someone who needed him. Something shifted in the air. The boy realized he'd crossed a line. He was no longer hiding behind anything. He was standing tall, emboldened by a bond born of shared vulnerability. The thug lunged forward, and before he could blink, the boy sidestepped, his heart hammering in sync with desperate breaths. "What do you think you're doing?" The thug snarled, frustration spilling into rage. The figures were closing in again, and all the boy could do was swing the brick one more time, praying for a stroke of luck. As he faced them down, he felt the weight of the night shift. He was no longer just a boy, he was a fighter, and tomorrow was not promised, but as the thug's hand connected with his shoulder in an iron grip, a chill ran down his spine. He had stepped into a storm, and now the true battle for both their lives began. Would this stand hold? Or was this just the beginning of something much darker? The answers loomed ahead like shadows bending under streetlights, onto a path he could never have anticipated. In that tense moment, as fear clung to the boy like a second skin, a fierce resolve ignited within him. Drawing strength from the weight of the brick in his hand, he faced the thugs with defiance sparkling in his eyes. The girl's frightened gaze rooted him, anchoring his courage as he realized that the fight wasn't just for himself. He was standing up for something greater, their right to be safe, to belong. The thug lunged again, but this time, the boy was ready. With a swift movement, he sidestepped, dodging the grasp that would have captured him. The brick swung through the air, and this time it connected with the thug's shoulder. He staggered, pain flashing across his face, and for a moment, time felt suspended. The laughter that once echoed off the walls turned into gasps of disbelief. "Get him!" one of the other men shouted, but they hesitated. The boy wasn't just a frail child anymore, he had become a source of unexpected resistance. "Let us finish this," the scar-faced thug snarled. In that moment, the boy remembered the depths of his desperation, the nights without food, the silent promises made under the moon. As the figures drew closer, instinctual strength coursed through him. "Leave her alone!" He screamed again, adrenaline pushing him forward, eyes bright with the fire of 1,000 frustrations. The thugs faltered, glancing at one another as if debating whether a mere child could stand against them. Seizing this moment, the boy pressed on, determination surging like a wave. Behind him, the elderly man who had protested earlier rushed into the fray. "You can't take him!" he roared, stepping into view with an untamed spirit that echoed through the alley. "He's just a child." The crowd surged forward, emboldened by the man's bravery. Their voices intertwined, creating a chorus of support. The boy's heart raced with hope as the shadows began to break, the crowd now a barrier between him and the looming darkness. "You need to leave him alone," cried out the woman from before, her voice fierce with conviction. The officer, now with eyes alight with purpose, moved closer as well. A guardian come alive. As the tides turned, denials replaced the threats. The thug's bravado crumbled under the growing gaze of unyielding determination from the crowd. "We don't want any trouble," one called hesitantly, backing away slightly. But still, the leader of the group glared, a mask of fury blended with fear, struggling to keep control. "Kid, you don't know what you're dealing with," he barked, but uncertainty was creeping into his voice, melting the hard edges of their control. The boy glanced between the man and the girl, back to the crowd now joining their fight. "I'm not going back," he shouted defiantly, raising the brick once more, not as an instrument of destruction, but as a symbol of resilience. "I don't have to be afraid anymore." That beacon of courage shattered internal walls, amplifying the collective determination. In unison, the crowd lifted their voices, a powerful tide becoming fierce armor. "Let him go. You can't have him without a fight." The thugs shared quick glances, realization dawning, this was no longer their territory to command. With fear replacing bravado, they stepped back, almost stumbling over one another as they assessed their odds. "Let us get out of here," the scarred figure muttered, a tremor of uncertainty in his eyes, and one by one, the others fell back into the night's shadows, leaving behind only doubt and questions. As the chaos melted into relief, the boy felt the weight of valor settle over him like a comforting blanket. Yet, it was not alone. The crowd, strangers just moments before, had become allies bound by something profound. They weren't just figments of an indifferent night, they were part of a community that refused to ignore a child's cries. The officer stepped forward, his voice calm yet commanding. "You're safe now," he assured, kneeling next to the boy, his eyes softened by understanding. "I promise we'll get you the help you need." Tears streamed down the boy's fierce face, releasing a flood of raw emotion. "I just wanted milk," he whispered, choked by everything unspoken, everything he had lost. "I know," the officer replied, his voice tender now, filled with the promise of a new beginning. "And you deserve so much more than just milk, kid." Behind him, the crowd erupted into chatter, the air charged with relief and unity. The young woman with vibrant hair stepped close, eyes sparkling with kindred spirit. "You were so brave," she offered, encouragement enfolding him like a warm blanket. The boy nodded, absorbing every word, feeling the weight of fear evolve into something lighter, more manageable. He looked at each face, every supporter, and in that moment, he understood he was not alone anymore. He had a community that would fight for him, that would stand together. As they all stood together in the alley bathed in starlight, the worry still lingering, but faith becoming stronger, the boy felt hope surge once more. It was an ember burning back against the cold, a promise that nights might hold terror, but dawn would always break. And so, under the watchful gaze of the moon, unyielding and steady, the boy found himself no longer a ghost wandering the shadows, but a beacon, ready to carve a new path ahead. It was over, the chaos settled, but the journey was just beginning. If you're feeling moved, then show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss more heart-wrenching stories like this one. Smash that like button now to help us reach more people. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this stunning conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful moment. Your voice matters, and together we can create a community that stands up, fights back, and believes in hope.